I think people always want to feel that they need to be motivated to eat healthy. I'm really looking forward to it. And then once that motivation wanes, then they think, oh, maybe this is not what I'm supposed to be doing. But actually, it's got nothing to do with motivation, because your motivation is always going to be fleeting. It's always going to be up and down. Like, I'm not always motivated to go and train. I'm not always motivated to get up and eat a healthy meal. I just know that that's just what needs to be done. So I just do it anyway. Doesn't When you let yourself get distracted by your mood or by where you're at, that's when you're likely to go off course. Just know that you know what needs to be done and what's right, and you do it regardless of how you feel or not. So I do got my fingers in a few different pies. So I currently do have a 9 to 5. I'm a contractor, so I work in content design. But I'd say that's just my day's work. My life's work is really more about health, wellness, and nutrition. So I'm plant based 6 years ago, so fully plant based. So I don't eat any meat, dairy, eggs, or fish. And since then, I've created a community on social media, just kind of educating and inspiring people on the benefits of kind of moving towards a more plant-based diet, kind of the health benefits, and giving people different recipes to dive into. And I guess just being someone who kind of lives that life myself, wanting to just kind of share that with others. So yeah, I live a very health focused life, a very health driven life. I'm big into other areas of health, sleep, training, and discipline, and overcoming things, and resilience. And I guess I try and just kind of encapsulate that into a lot of my content, and what I put out there to the community. My whole journey, really, when I was in school and university, I wanted to play professional football. That was really the only thing that I wanted to do. It was all I really thought about. I kind of, I did okay in school. I went to a boarding school, and I just kind of did enough to get by. But I was really more focused on how can I get into into the professional football, playing at different Sunday league clubs, and when I got into uni, playing at semi-pro clubs. So then when I left uni at 21, 22, I then went away to America. This is all going to tie into where I am now, by the way, so just bear with me. So then I went away to America for a few months to try and find a club. And all the while I was kind of like doing little bits of work here or there whilst I was back in the UK. Like I was working at some like event arenas and trying to get just money to kind of support the goals that I wanted to achieve, which was playing football. So I came back from America in 2011 or something like that. Played a bit of semi-professional in the UK, and you don't really get paid too much at semi-professional level, but I was still trying to, in the hope that my qualities would stand out and someone would be at a match and, right place, right time, get kind of picked up from there. In 2013, I went away to Norway. So I went to Norway for a few months to train with a few clubs, and I was trying to get my foot in the door. Wasn't quite working out. So then I came back to the UK again, a bit of semi-pro. Then in 2015, I went to Austria to train with a club that wasn't doing well in the top division in Austria. And then when I got there, I was training with them for a few weeks, but at that point, I've kind of started to get a bit disillusioned, because they mentioned that they would have liked to take me on, but they would have preferred to go with a player from their reserve team. So came back to London, felt a little bit disillusioned about football. And I wasn't working full time at the time. And then, as I said, I was working, a little bit here and a little bit there, just to kind of support the dreams that I wanted to actually go out and achieve. And I think from 2015, 2016, I started to kind of question and second guess things. At the time, I was what I would have been 20, late 20s. So by that time, if you're not playing professional football, you're really struggling to get into the game. So then I met my then girlfriend at the time. We then got married. Unfortunately, she passed away in 2021. But we, at the time, she was kind of really inspirational in me kind of finding new direction in my life. And one of the things that I came across was I was becoming more open minded to kind of, new experiences, new directions in life, new perspectives, things like that. Came across some information in a documentary about nutrition, which was what then pushed me towards a plant based diet. And then I started really learning and kind of creating a lot of content about it as well. And then I ended up writing for a digital lifestyle magazine for free for a little bit, a women's health magazine, and just really started to develop a passion for kind of disseminating health information and distributing it in a way that people could understand, and then make positive change in their life. And then so I started doing that, and then at the time I found a couple of jobs. I found a 9 to 5 that I was working at in, where was it? It was like King's Cross. It was like this small business So I was working with them in operations. And then I went to another company based in White City. But I always felt that with my experience that I've been developing through my writing about health and things like that, I wanted to kind of do content and writing, even if it was, maybe even if I didn't envisage myself doing this for the rest of my life, I still wanted to do something which I found quite creative and allowed me to, be quite expressive, which was writing. So when I was working for the company based in White City, I was in operations, but they needed someone to do content and PR 1 day a week. So I just kind of was like, I want to do that. So let me do that. So then that turned into 2 days a week. So I was almost kind of pivoted within a startup, because startups can be quite helter skelter. You can be doing one job 1 day and then another job the next. Obviously, all the while I was doing this whilst continuing to build my community on social media around nutrition and things like that. And then I think it was in 2019 I then completely moved from the company where I was doing operations and PR and content to then a content design role. And again, it was really, it was sort of content editor role. So again, quite similar to content design, where you're, very user focused, creating user journeys and, writing in plain English, easy to understand, and that kind of thing. So that's really how I got into that. But as I say, that's kind of just a day to day. But I think in terms of what I want to push forward and progress with, you know, on a wider scale, it's really more what I'm doing on social media, and obviously I've got my website there as well, where I put a lot of long form pieces about plant based nutrition, about health, about well being. So yeah, and now we're kind of where we are now. Well, I mean, when you're that age, you don't really have much agency or control over the decisions that you make. I guess now that I look back at it retrospectively, I think getting an education was a pretty good thing. I had some good experiences while I was at school. Of course, in a parallel universe, I may have wanted to just go to a football academy, but I guess my parents were very keen on us getting a good education, or that us being my two brothers and my sister. So yeah, that was really how it kind of panned out. So it was almost like, as I said, my parents were very much wanting me to have a good education. That was, of course, all they know. I'm sure there are many other people who have, whether it's I'm from Ghana, so whether it's Ghanaian or Nigerian or Togolese parents or whatever, they are very hell bent on having their kids have the best possible education, and they're maybe not too kind of aware of the other opportunities that exist, and even more so now, because there's so many other actual career options now than back then. But things like football or any kind of musician or anything like that, they were more focused on, oh, be a doctor or get your education or this and that, which is absolutely fair enough. I think now looking back at it, so yeah, that was really, it's going to be difficult at 11 or 12 years old to be like, I'm doing this because I'm literally living under my parents' roof. So that was really really kind of how that panned out. Once I left uni, then I was almost like, right, now I've got the quote unquote freedom to now where I can explore and do what I want to do, because I've done all the educational side of things. There's no real obligation for me to go and get a grad job or whatever it may be. Because it's funny, because when I was actually in university, I started off doing sports science, and the first year, again, I wasn't really in tune with the course. I kind of just picked it because it kind of made sense to me. I liked sporting, stuff, but it was actually more science and biology related, which actually, ironically, I'm more interested in now than I was back then. So my first year didn't go great. I had to redo two modules, and then I didn't pass them again. And then they were saying you can either take a year out or you can choose another course. And I actually wanted to leave uni at the time, but I had discussions with my parents, and they were really keen on me staying. So I ended up just doing film and television studies. So that was one of two courses that had space on it for the year, so I didn't have to take the year out. So yeah, once I completed 3 years of that, then I was like, right, now I can go and do my own thing and see where football takes me. When you're a young man, I was 22. I think going to see a completely different place in the world, somewhere that you've never ever experienced, never been. So I was in Los Angeles for a bit, and then I went to Ventura, which is like a smaller beach town in California, to train with the teams down there. And yeah, you almost like, regardless of it not working out, I can look back on that period of my life and be like, I'm glad that I actually took that leap, because there'll probably be a lot of people out there who maybe think about it and, analysis paralysis and maybe not do it. I came back from that with definitely a wider perspective, and I felt like I'd matured. I felt like I'd grown a lot. I mean, I've grown even more since then, but I felt like it was a time that was, it was really interesting. And just as I said, being in an environment that you're unfamiliar with and trying to kind of make things happen, it was definitely a big learning curve for me in many ways, but I definitely felt like I got a lot out of it. The period in between when I was kind of, for example, when I came back from America in 2011 and then went to Norway in 2013, I didn't really get a stable job because it was more like I was doing like event work. So you'd have certain, if you go to there was an event arena in Hammersmith, for example, the Hammersmith Apollo, and I used to work at the O2 as well. So I was always doing a lot of these kind of jobs. So there would be certain months where there was loads of work and you'd be working almost every day and it's like a full-time job. It's, yeah, working in the evenings. Then there were other times where there were more quieter months. So that was really kind of what I was doing. And I guess I wanted something in that regard because, again, my focus was still 100% on football. I didn't want to go and be like, oh, I'm now going to go and work in an office, but I'm still trying to play football. I still wanted something that gave me a bit of flexibility to say that, if there was an opportunity to go for a trial somewhere, that I could just kind of get up and go. So in terms of how I came across those roles, I wasn't really too sure. I guess because I'd done that kind of work when I was a bit younger, when I was 18, when I just got to uni. A friend of mine had a contact to work in Wembley Stadium in like I think the merchandising department in the stadium on event days. So I kind of wanted just something like that, which didn't have, I wasn't necessarily tied to anything, and just gave me a bit of flexibility to go and do what I wanted to do. The first full time job that I did have, again, I was just looking at jobs. I think there was this platform called Flexi, I think it was, and that was how I came up with this operations role. Yeah, because I guess I just kind of just needed something at the time to kind of tie myself over, work full time, but then continue to figure out exactly where I wanted to go because I wasn't going to work in operations forever. So yeah, it was really just a case of I didn't really have anything specific in my mind in terms of right, I need this or I'm going to go down this route. I actually need something at the time, and then I guess from there, as I started developing my writing prowess on the side and with the health and wellness magazine, I then thought, okay, if I'm going to I know I kind of where I want to build my, for example, personal brand to then take it full time in the future, which we're working toward, but using those skills it would probably make sense for me to be a content editor or a content writer or in a role where I'm writing or having to take large piece of information and condense it into something that's user friendly. It just made sense to transfer those skills as opposed to just because I would never go into like, I don't know, I was never going to go and be like a nurse or a doctor or something because that would have just taken a number of different years of study. So I wanted to just kind of utilize my existing skills to find something that worked. In school, I always used to do really well with my coursework. So writing, and I was English literature and English language were probably my two favorite subjects at school. I didn't like anything else because I thought it was just a waste of time. But those two I felt I always used to really pay attention in those classes. I used to just like writing and expressing, whether it's, doing a coursework or writing some kind of story or whatever it may be. I felt that that was something that I liked and enjoyed doing. I maybe didn't connect the dots in terms of like, oh, maybe I could take this a bit further. I guess again, that's where my partner who's unfortunately not with us anymore, she kind of was like, oh, you've got a real way with words. And I was like, do I? I had no idea. So then I kind of just started to develop it even more and then realized that actually maybe I do have a way with words, but also I do remember liking writing coursework when I was in school. So to be honest, it was. If you had told me at the time when I started sharing the stuff I was sharing on social media that it would get to this point, I wouldn't really understood it because I didn't actually go out to create a brand. I went out. So rewind back to 2017. I watched a documentary about nutrition and plant based diets and lifestyles, and it compelled me to change from a very heavy omnivorous diet, eating a lot of meat, eggs, fish, all that kind of stuff, to just completely eliminating all of it overnight and then just moving towards a plant-based diet and just kind of seeing what would happen, but still wanting to do it for training, performance, health, because I still train in the gym. I've had a sporting background. I didn't want to just wilt away. And then I started noticing all of these incredible benefits. My sleep was a lot better. I had more mental clarity. I had more energy. I felt lighter. And I kind of, after sort of around 6 months of, really kind of dialing in the plant based diet and kind of ironing out any areas where I was a bit short in and understanding key nutrients and protein and things like that, I was like, let me just kind of start sharing a few bits and pieces on Instagram. And I had an Instagram at the time, but it was quite dormant because I wasn't the biggest fan of social media. Still not the biggest fan of social media in many ways, but I felt compelled to share that information that I was learning about through scientific papers, through books, through, all manner of research. And then I guess it just started growing. And again, my idea was just to lead with value and to lead with from the perspective of I'm learning this stuff. It's made me feel incredible. It's given me so many benefits in my life. Let me just do that. I don't know why, because I could have just as easily been like, okay, this is great for me. I'm just going to continue doing it. But I was learning so much, and I felt like I'd stirred up like a passion around health and well-being, and through the feeling that I was feeling from moving towards a plant-based diet, just started sharing recipes, studies, all other lifestyle elements, in and around that kind of plant-based sphere, and just started growing. And a lot of the recipes were, taking off. People were really getting, they were getting some value from it. And yeah, I guess fast forward to 2023, the Instagram community is nearly at 130,000, and I've been able to work with some really good organizations, and I've got some other really good projects that are coming up. So yeah, I mean, as I said, there was no planning. It was just I'm going to lead with value. I'm going to almost like share what I'm doing in public, kind of thing. Share how my plant based journey is going in public. Share the research that I'm doing in public, and it's just kind of where it is. And it's funny because I almost, while I'll call it a personal brand to someone to use it as a descriptor, it's more just me continuing to just demonstrate my passion for health and wellness in public. It's weird that I even have like, not weird, but it's like I would have never envisaged having to, for example, set up a limited company, do work with organizations that pay money. Like, it's just like I'm just sharing my passion for health and well-being, and I guess being the face of it, and articulating myself well, and being able to help people. That's obviously caught the eye of people who you know who work in this space. So I've been able to do some really impactful collaborations. So yeah, that's it's weird because people ask me, "Oh, how do you create a personal brand?" And I'm just like, well, in my experience, it was actually creating a personal brand without actually trying to create a personal brand. Just finding something that you're really passionate about, and lead with it, be authentic, and here I am. Quite tough at the start. There were times where I was like, oh, really? Am I doing this? Especially when it comes to like video. Obviously, everything's video driven now. Before it was quite simple. I was just kind of sharing, whether it's infographics or recipe plates or things like that. I could almost hide behind it a little bit because I was like, in terms of putting myself out there, I was quite, I don't know. I would say maybe introverted. I think there's certain elements of my character that is a bit more introverted, but I think I've been able to learn to be able to put myself out there a bit more. I was always confident in the information that I was distributing. It was never a case of, oh, I don't know what I'm talking about. Like, I fully knew what I was talking about based off of the research, based off of all the stuff that I'd done. It was just like, oh, I'm putting myself out there, and oh, people might know me now. And it's weird because like now people like it's numerous times people have recognized me in the street, which is bizarre. Like, because in my mind, I'm just like, oh, I'm just Jeffrey. I'm just sharing recipes. It doesn't really register with me as in terms of the impact that it's having, which is really nice to see ultimately when I think about it. Because I also get a lot of messages with people saying, you've really helped me and my mum lose weight, or you've helped me, get back on a healthy lifestyle journey, and I feel great. And that's super impactful. Actually, that's way more impactful and way more meaningful than any of the partnerships that I do. It's the impact that you have on other people. So, so yeah, as I said, putting myself out there at the start was a bit tricky, but I can't think we got there in the end. There are a lot of people out there who do have this, oh, I've got X amount of followers, you should treat they almost see themselves as above other people, which I find actually quite ridiculous because let's be honest, social media is not a real thing. If you're treating people poorly in the real world, that's who you are. That's your character. It's not the fact that people follow you, or give you a double tap, or a double click or whatever. It's about how you treat people. It's how you treat people who you think can't do anything for you. So to me, it's I post the same as when I had 400 followers as now, as if I was, compared to now that I've got 100. It doesn't matter. It doesn't actually matter. Yes, I've got a, desire to want to impact the lives of multiple people to become healthier. That doesn't make me better than anyone. Well, I think the continuing part was actually quite easy when I started noticing so many of the positive benefits I was experiencing. Like, as I said, less inflammation, feeling lighter, mental clarity, uh, gut health and digestion improving, sleeping better. But of course, it seems quite extreme. I'm reluctant to say it's restrictive because I think the way that I was eating before was probably very monotone. It was very like gym bro, eggs in the morning, sweet potato, broccoli, brown rice, chicken, fish. Like there was not much diversity and variety in what I was eating at all, compared to now, where yes, I'm not eating any animal products, but I am eating the most diverse range of foods. I'm not missing out. People think, oh, protein, where are you going to get? Getting plenty of plant protein from beans, legumes, nuts and seeds. Foods like that, and just eating just a variety of foods and coming across foods that I'd never even heard of before I went plant based. It's funny because I think about 5 years or so before I went plant based, someone had mentioned it to me that they were going to go vegan for a bit, and I was like, "What? No way! I'm going to wilt away. That's not possible." I couldn't picture it. I just could not picture it at all. But then when you just look into it and you just see that there is actually so much, for example, plant protein out there from the likes of organic tofu and tempeh, beans, lentils, chickpeas. There's like hundreds of beans, by the way, loads of them, all protein rich, mineral rich as well. And then, you look at other foods like quinoa, and I was eating a lot more oatmeal and getting more nuts and seeds like pumpkin seeds, hemp seeds, flax seeds, Brazil nuts, all of these different chia seeds, all of these different foods that I wasn't eating when I was eating a more animal based diet, an omnivorous diet. So yeah, it was really, I don't really know what compelled me to just completely switch, because I could have just maybe reduced my meat consumption and got more plant protein in there. But I'm maybe somewhat extreme in that regard, where I was like, if I see something that I feel convicted by, I'm going to do it. And I don't necessarily believe that you have to be vegan to be healthy. There are a lot of people out there who maybe, champion a very aggressive approach to that and say plant-based diet is the 100% the best diet. I don't really subscribe to that, because there are plenty of people who eat no animal products and are very unhealthy. And there are plenty of people who do eat animal products who are very healthy. Likewise, there are people who eat animal products that are very unhealthy. And there are people like myself who eat only plants who champion health and are very healthy. So there's so many different ways of approaching health. I do think, though, that looking at the evidence and looking at what I've kind of learned about nutrition, that getting more plants into the diet is a really positive step to take, even if that does mean you have a small amount of animal products on your plate, whether that's wild caught fish or grass fed beef or more leaner meats with less saturated fat. But yeah, it's kind of, it was a really interesting time. As I said, I was just at a time in my life where I was very open to things, and I guess this was something that I felt compelled to do and compelled to change. And look, if my health had tanked at the time, I might have been like, you know what, let me go back to eating animal products. But I just got really, and it wasn't like I was unhealthy. As I said, I had a very gym focused diet. I trained, all that kind of stuff, but my knowledge of nutrition was very, very limited. It was limited to just getting as much protein as I could to build muscle. But now I've got such a wider understanding of health and well-being on a whole, and yeah, just understanding how to properly optimize a plant-based diet was one of my key goals. And I look to achieve that and then kind of just keep moving forward with it and continue sharing it with other people. So yeah, seems crazy, but got it done. I would say, look, I'd make him be aware of that, but then I'd want to really get into his mind and be like, if this is truly something that you want to do, you've got to work yourself harder than you've ever worked. You've got to outwork everyone, from in terms of your training, in terms of your diet, in terms of brushing up on your skills. This can't just be a lackadaisical type thing where you feel that your talent's going to get you through. You have to work yourself, but also understand that even if you do that, it may not work the way you want it to work. So it's important to not necessarily have your eye on other things, but just be aware of that. But also, by that same token, not letting anyone deter you from truly doing what you feel you believe you want to do. I'd say give value first and foremost. People, they see a lot of these content creators, whether it's they're making money from partnerships or whatever it may be, forget all that. Because if you go chasing the money, when the money's not coming, you'll just get bored of it. You've got to find something that you're truly passionate about, that you like to do for free. I did my social media for about 3.5 years with no expectation, for free, before I then got my first paid partnership, which paid me £350, which at the time I was like, oh, this is great. But it wasn't even about the money. It was more just about, oh, this is cool. Like, but after, it wasn't like when I'd done that partnership, I was like, right, what's the next one? I need to find more money. It was just continuing to give value. You've got to understand that the people are going to buy into you, so you have to give them value. You have to create almost a community type feel, not to feel like you're bigger than anyone else or you're better than anyone else. And look, there are some people who do that, and it might work for them. Unfortunately, so because there are people out there who maybe just can't see that. You know, these a lot of these influencers maybe don't have their best interests at heart and want to just make a quick buck, but if your heart is pure and you just put value out there and you give people what's going to help them, a lot of the time, the financial remuneration will come in some form or another. And you want to be able to go to bed at night and look yourself in the mirror and be like, I'm not robbing people here. You know, I'm not taking the mick. I'm not telling people, oh, go and utilize this product and blah blah blah. And here's my discount code when I don't even use that product myself ordinarily. But tell myself, and be happy with myself, and my conscience is clear that I'm not lying. So yeah, that's what I'd say. When you eat a lot more plant foods, you eat a lot less processed foods. Your inflammatory markers, such as C-reactive protein, which is like the main inflammatory marker that you see on a blood test, they will come down. When you eat a lot of plant foods that are rich in antioxidants, so a lot of brightly colored fruits and vegetables, berries, foods like that, antioxidants are, they reduce the impact that free radicals have on our physiology. So free radicals are kind of unstable molecules that can cause oxidative stress, which can damage our DNA, cause inflammation, things like that. You eat more antioxidant rich foods, you're going to lower that inflammation, you're going to lower that impact of the oxidative stress. And as I said, getting more plant foods into your gut. A lot of people who maybe don't go from eating a very little amount of fiber to eating a lot more. They can have some digestive complaints and concerns. So it's about kind of incorporating a lot more plant foods slowly into the diet, like fermented foods like kimchi and sauerkraut, and if you want to consume dairy foods like yogurt and kefir, which have probiotic fiber, which are like live bacteria that can help to kind of reside in your gut. Because the health of your gut, as we're now seeing a lot in the science, is very much paramount to your overall health. And obviously, that's where your nutrition comes in. So, well, I mean, look, you can still eat, I still, jollof and plantain and wache. Like, you can still eat these foods. Like, you just don't have the meat. You can have, whether it's beans or mushrooms and beans or tofu or something like that. When I go and visit my mum, she'll cook, whether it's wache, and she'll just make a nice stew with like chickpeas and peppers and things like that, as opposed to the one that's got meat in, which obviously the rest of the will have. So genuinely speaking, I've never got to a point where I'm like, oh, I really miss eating eggs, or I really miss eating fish. Like, this is something that I've been, as I said, very consistent with over the 6 years. And I think, I understand that a lot of people struggle with kind of yo-yo dieting and discipline and all these types of. I think people always want to feel that they need to be motivated to eat healthy. I'm really looking forward to it. And then once that motivation wanes, then they think, oh, maybe this is not what I'm supposed to be doing. But actually, it's got nothing to do with motivation, because your motivation is always going to be fleeting. It's always going to be up and down. Like, I'm not always motivated to go and train. I'm not always motivated to get up and eat a healthy meal. I just know that that's just what needs to be done. So I just do it anyway. Doesn't When you let yourself get distracted by your mood or by where you're at, that's when you're likely to go off course. Just know that you know what needs to be done and what's right, and you do it regardless of how you feel or not. But I think resilience is a really important thing, whether when it comes to whether it's trying to build a new dietary habit, or trying to get into the gym, or trying to achieve something in life or set goals. And I think you can build a lot of resilience um, by pushing yourself to, for example, I think my training habits and pushing yourself in the gym and things like that, that's a really good platform to build resilience to then actually take into other areas of your life. deliberately doing difficult things or deliberately doing things that don't come easy to you are really a gateway to then actually being able to do so many more things and expand yourself in ways that you may not have imagined before. So yeah, I think I don't have any specific strategies around goal setting. I think those if those things work for other people, then that's fantastic. I just think like, you know, I've kind of got my passion, I've got my niche. I want to keep growing it. So I do think about certain ideas that I can do. And I think it's all just about being consistent, continue putting yourself out there, continuing to, give value in whatever field it may be. And doors will open, you'll meet people and things. If you just keep working towards, there's not like, I wouldn't say there's a specific goal because there's not like a specific end point for what I want to do. I want to just keep growing as an individual. That's my desire. I want to keep growing, keep getting better, and whatever that looks like will be whatever shape it takes. But to do that, you have to just keep your foot on the accelerator and keep pushing forward, keep exercising discipline and resilience in whatever field, and put you in a good place. People have asked me this before, and I don't really think I have any like people who I've looked towards in their journey and thought, oh, I want to emulate that, or I want to, I really respect what he's done. I mean, there is a guy he's got a really big podcast in the United States, a guy called Rich Roll. I don't know if you've heard of him. He went from being an alcoholic lawyer to a plant-based ultra runner doing ultra marathons. I'm really, inspired by his story, but I wouldn't say he was ever like a role model or anything like that. I think, my I guess my dad was like the one figure or man in my life who I saw all the time and got a lot of wisdom from. So I'd say he helped me massively when I was growing up, and he was always someone who pushed us as when we were children. So yeah, and I guess his calm demeanor and his desire to I remember he had so many different like little phrases that he would put around the house, like you can do it if you try, or treat people the way you wanted to be treated. So that kind of, I guess, subconsciously ingrained into my mind. So yeah, I mean, if I was to say anyone, I'd probably say my dad. But again, I in terms of externally, I've never really thought, right, he's a role model or someone who I really look up to, kind of thing. I've kind of always wanted to carve out my own path. To really, I know it sounds quite cliche, but just to go for whatever you want to go for, and it might not work out, but so what? You at least went for it. If I had decided to not go to America, I didn't want to get to my 30s or 40s thinking, oh, I should have gone to America. Just do it and try and find a way. If it doesn't work, you pivot and do something else. And you know, as long as you're working hard and working, grafting and putting, whether it's in today's day and age, if you're putting out content, you want to be like, I don't know, a content creator in financial advising or whatever it may be. As long as you know that you're putting in the maximum effort and that you're pushing yourself and putting yourself out there, then you can just be like, you're on the right path. You don't always have to have all of the answers, but as long as you know that you're on that right path and you're continuing to push forward, then that will stand you in good stead. So yeah, and I think resilience and discipline are two traits that are really important for everyone to cultivate, because resilience, because bad things are going to happen in life, that's non-negotiable. I've been through some terrible times, but I think some of the habits that I've cultivated, particularly around health, particularly around training, pushing myself, doing hard things, they help to kind of almost give you a bit of armor when it comes to dealing with some of the tough situations that people will no doubt going to experience in life. So resilience is important, and discipline, because again, I think, we all know what needs to be done, but sometimes we don't feel like doing it. So for example, keeping your body fit and healthy, everyone knows that that needs to be done really deep down to be your most present, your most kind of your best self essentially. But when that alarm goes off at 6:30, does everyone jump out of bed thinking, "Yeah, I'm really excited to get up and go to the gym today"? No, you want to. I want to stay in bed every morning. I wanted to lie there and just be comfortable. But I know that that's not what the future version of myself in 12 hours is going to be happy with, because I'll look back and think, "Oh, I should have gone to the gym." So you think about that version of yourself, thinking about that future version of yourself who will be happy that you're doing these things that in that moment might feel quite uncomfortable, but further down the line are going to push you further towards you being the best version of yourself. So yeah, I'd say those two things are really important. Well, look, I mean, I think you've probably got to think about the areas where you have built a good amount of discipline. So, for example, with yourself in terms of going to the gym and training. understand, just trying to figure out, what exactly was it that helped you build that, and go back to the start with that. Whether it was for a particular reason that you started training, and then you felt like, right, I need to, now that I've locked in my reason why, I need to continue with this. I think, look, continuing to try and lock in a reason why when you're trying to build something will allow you to stick with it regardless of whether you feel like doing it or not, because you have that concrete reason as to why. So, for example, with your nutrition, if you're like, I want to reduce my risk of disease, or I want to, you know, eat a diet that's conducive to maintaining a healthy body weight. If you have that as your why front and center, then that will allow you to make the right decisions that go towards that. And that is what helps, and that will be what will help you rather to kind of build the discipline to do what you know to be right, because you've got that kind of mission statement. I want to XYZ. So that's front and center. And then you're able to kind of work backwards from there. So yeah, I'd say that's probably something that's really important. And I think, again, this is something that's common with a lot of people, where they're really tight, locked in with some areas, and kind of maybe a bit more lax with others. Um, People say that the term, how you do everything is how you do anything. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not necessarily true, but I think particularly with, like, so training and nutrition, they go hand in hand. So I would suggest with things like that, they should probably be aligned in the same kind of way. One thing that I think is important is stress reduction, and training for me is like a non-negotiable. That helps me to manage my stress. That, I wouldn't say stress. I'm not really a very stressed guy, because I think, particularly given what I've gone through in my life, I don't actually think that there are that many things to be stressed about. There are people, we always want to find something to be stressed about, whether it's, oh, I've not got any milk in the fridge, or, whatever it may be. Like, I've seen the worst that life can throw at me. And, thank God I've been able to bounce back from it with the help of my friends and family, leaning on God. And I don't actually think that there are many things that we need to stress about. Nothing's that serious, actually, in my opinion. Not many things are that serious. So, yeah, I'm able to kind of balance that. And, I've got an incredible fiance now in my life, who I'm, so we just kind of work so well together. And, she's obviously been so supportive of, obviously, a lot of the stuff that I've gone through, and, incredible person. So, having strong relationships as well is really, really helpful. And I guess doing meaningful work, like, yes, my 9 to 5 is just my 9 to 5. It's not like I'm, waking up every morning thinking, oh, I'm delighted to be doing content design. But I do have meaningful work in what I'm doing on social media, and some of the other projects that I'm working on in the health and wellness space. And that's what drives me. That is what kind of helps to drive me every single day and put me in a good, space, because this is almost like my life's work, my mission, to keep kind of producing the goods and helping people to improve their lives from a nutritional standpoint. So, yeah, I think finding the balance to live is very, very simple. I mean, look, it does help that I work from home as well, so I'm able to. I don't have any commute or anything like that, so that's obviously very useful. You don't necessarily have to, you know, have 45-second videos that are really well edited. Like, if you're just, delivering good quality information that people want to share with people, that people want to save, that people resonate with, and, dive into the comments to have conversations with other people, then you can absolutely do that. But I think it's important to, whether it's, you don't necessarily have to have like a specific niche tied down, but have something that you want to contribute, have something that you're passionate about, that you feel that you would like your voice to be heard on. and and just create. I think, of course, the social media landscape can be a bit of a minefield at times, where people can say some, dodgy things online. They can criticize you or whatever it may be, but always just see it as the people who are very critical and in the comments calling people stupid and whatnot. They've obviously got their own issues going on in their life, and in most, I would say, in probably 99% of cases, they wish that they had the guts or the confidence to put themselves out there like the person that they're criticizing. So don't worry about what people have to say. If you have something, if you feel you have a message that you want to be heard and you feel like you want to share it, just share it. And if I look back at my content in 2017 compared to now, of course, it's way more refined. Of course, the kind of subject matter still remains the same, but I wasn't really concerned about the video quality back then. I was just like, I'm just going to get content out. Like, I'm just going to put stuff out there, and then you can iterate as you go along. There was an organization in the United States who reached out to me to do a talk for their staff around the benefits of a plant-based diet. and gut health. It was for a specific month that they were doing. And I think that was a really big thing. That was kind of the first time that I'd done something like that. And I've got really good feedback on it. And it really helped people to kind of understand, the benefits of plant-based diets for gut health, for, inflammation, lowering inflammation, for reducing chronic disease risk. So I guess to be trusted with that opportunity to help educate, a set of staff at an organization was really impactful. I also did a talk for Wagamama, which was really, really good. That was last year, where we discussed the benefits of kind of true nourishment. And because there was a government policy that came into play last year where they were putting calories on the menu. So we were kind of discussing the pros and cons of that. So yeah, just kind of being able to be a voice in those kind of really important moments, I'd say it was, something to be really proud of. I mean, first things first, it's important to realize that life isn't going to be a bed of roses. It's just not. Like there are going to like I I go to my parents. I got try and visit them as often as I can. I mean, they don't live too far away, so I'll see them maybe once, twice a week. My parents are going to pass away. That's just going to happen. So when you reconcile with that fact, it's just, when it happens, it's less of a surprise. Of course, it will be sad, but you've prepared yourself for it in many ways mentally. And I think in terms of, resilience is one of the things where, I mean, of course, a lot of the things that I've gone through, I didn't maybe realize that I had the resilience to be able to get through it in the way that I did. And I guess maybe looking back at it retrospectively, I think doing difficult things. So doing difficult things like getting up early and going to the gym, you know, being very disciplined with your diet, you know, maybe it doesn't have to be this extreme, but doing things like cold showers in the morning, basically training your mind to overcome, you know, situations where you may not want to do it, but you can actually deal with it. Like, for example, I like cold showers and I like going to do the cold exposure because, yeah, there are benefits from a health standpoint and people, less inflammation and all of these different increased testosterone and stuff. But fundamentally, I don't want to do it, but that's exactly why I do it. So I try to create this kind of place of, okay, this is going to be difficult. You don't really want to do it, but just battle and fight through it. And then on the other side, you'll come out thinking, wow, I've just overcome a sense of fear. So, and that I think helps to bulletproof you a little bit. It helps to kind of create a bit of armor for you to become the strongest version of yourself, to be able to deal with difficult things. And that's not to say that when those difficult things come around, they're not going to suck and they're not going to be really, really bad, because they will be, but they maybe would have been worse if you approach life thinking it's fun and games. You don't really do anything. You try and have everything easy and nice, and because that's not how life is. You need to still yourself, because life is hard for everyone. I'd say discipline. I think discipline is a skill that you can cultivate. There might always be times where I want to record a recipe, or I want to get out of bed and go and train, or I want to maintain my health, or I want to do. But I know this all needs to be done, so I just do it. Like there's no questions asked. I think you got to be led by the mission and not your mood. Like our moods are always going to fluctuate, so I'd say that is really important. Um, and just a desire to kind of you know just to be creative and just to be open to see what's possible. I think that's always really important. Just keeping your ear to the ground and seeing what you can do and put out there, and trying to be creative and learn creative skills like video editing and things like that. For example, that was something that I've learned a bit more of sort of back end of last year and into this year to really kind of tighten up my videos. And I'd say just always wanting to excel and grow. As I look at almost a metaphor of my desire to grow, I look at my videos from 2017 and look at my videos now. I want to be better in all areas of my life. I just want to see my maximum potential in whatever it may be. So, yeah, I'd say that's really important in terms of kind of what's helped to get me where I am now.